I'm Barb Hampton. I am Rebecca Bertrand's mother. I am a wife, mother, grandmother. I have helped in ministry for years. We helped establish my son's church in Binghamton, New York. For the last 6 years, we have been a vital part of that. Looking forward to establishing one in Ithaca, New York with another team. And so ministry has been my life. And I really love the Lord and have a relationship with Him that is very comfortable, in that I just, throughout the day, I'm always just kind of talking with God on and off, just like I would as a friend was in the house with me or wherever I was going when I'm driving or whatever. And one day, 17 years ago, I walked out on a January morning to put things in our garage, recycling things. And as I stepped out the door, I looked up and to the sky, and it was a bright, sunny day. And I heard within my heart, "I will bless thee with long life." And my first thought was, oh, I've just started thyroid medicine, and I'm on the up. But immediately, with the next thought that came to my mind was, no, this is from God. So I looked up at that beautiful sky again, and I said, Lord, I receive this from you. I don't know why you're giving me this wonderful promise, but I know you want to bless me with a long life. And so I received that promise from you. And so over the week, that was a Friday, and over the weekend I wondered a little bit about that. I kind of thought that was an unusual thing to receive from the Lord. I will bless thee with long life. I mean, I didn't really understand it, and I didn't give a whole lot of thought of it too, but on Monday, I went to have a mammogram done. Just a minute. And it's such a beautiful thing that God spoke that to me, because at the time, even there, it didn't relate to me why. But they asked me to stay longer, so I said fine. And so they kept redoing it and adjusting it. And then they said, well, will you come back? And so I said, sure, I'll just go shopping and then I'll come back. Because I knew other ladies that would just get hyper and all bent out of shape when things like that happen. And I just thought, usually it ends up nothing, so I didn't even think about it. So I went back later for a sonogram, and then I drove home. And by the time I got home, my son was at the house, and he said he had a call from the doctor, and they wanted me to call immediately as soon as I got in. So I called the doctor, and she said, Barbara, we found what we believe is cancer. And so she said, would you hold while I call the surgeon? And so in my mind, I was thinking, well, we're going to get a biopsy. But it wasn't just for a biopsy. When I went, my husband asked me, do you want me to go with you? And still, I'm not thinking very seriously. I'm a very optimistic person, I believe. So when I said, oh no, you go to work, I'll be fine. So I went. And the surgeon started talking to me about all the things that would need to be done, and that I would probably have a lumpectomy followed by chemo and radiation. And so I thought, well, you haven't done a biopsy yet, I said. And he said, Barbara, he looked at me seriously like, what, am I'm not listening or something. And I said, well, what percentage why do you think I really have cancer? And he said, well, 95% sure or more that it's cancer. And then tears came to my eyes, and I said, would you please go over this again? And so then in driving home, after that day, I realized I had cancer. And then I remembered that beautiful promise God had given to me. I will bless thee with long life. And then I said, oh God, you're so good. You knew before I was having the mammogram that I would need this promise. And so when I had to deal with it, I went for the lumpectomy, and on that day I had such a sweet assurance, and the girl at the hospital, there was someone in the bed, and she was so nervous and she was having similar operation for cancer, and I was able to minister to her because I wasn't concerned about myself, because I had such a sweet promise from the Lord that I was very cheerful and trying to encourage her and help her to have faith. And she let us pray with her, and it was a wonderful thing. And so I had the lumpectomy and went through with that, and that was fine. And then I started chemo. And after my first chemo, I put my hands through my hair, and my hair came out in globs. I'm sorry. Well, anyways, at those times, the reality of the cancer sometimes would hit me, and I would be a little fearful or worried, and then that promise would come to me, and my heart would go back to peace, and I knew that was really God, and I knew without a doubt. I just knew that was God speaking to me. And so I went through the chemo, and on my last week of chemo, my sister had died in the hospital. She had been in the hospital for 9 months, waiting for a heart transplant. And I had another cousin who was in the hospital at that time with breast cancer that had returned. And she determined with them to let me out of the hospital because I'm going to go to my cousin's funeral, because they were the same age and very close. Well, they only lived a couple miles apart, and she was like a sister to the family. And so as she didn't make it to the church for the memorial service, but she made it to the gravesite. And as she walked up to the gravesite, she came right over to me. And she gave me this big hug, and I gave her a big hug. And this terrible thought came to me, that you're next, Barbara, because I had just in recent years lost my brother Nathan, my sister Judy, my mother, my sister Kathy was there at the gravesite, and my cousin this was in May, and my cousin wasn't going to live, they said, past September, which she didn't. She died in September, and we all knew she was struggling. So it was just like this terrible sense of grief and death, and that I was going to be next. And as I hugged her, but immediately within my spirit, after that thought, that dreadful thought, "You're next, Barbara," came to me, rose up within my heart that no, I responded so strong, no, God has promised me a long life. And so I never thought that again about I was next. That just left, because that promise from the Lord, I will bless thee with a long life. It's not an exact quote from scripture, but it is from the scripture. And God usually speaks to me through scripture. And usually when I'm reading scripture or something I've memorized, that will come back to me. So it just was my promise. And I have to be honest, and then I went through radiation, 6 weeks of radiation, 5 days a week, and that was 17 years ago. And did I tell you I was 70 now? I can't remember if I did, but I'm 70, and God has given me a wonderful, blessed life, and I thank Him for it, and I thank Him for that promise. And there have been other times through the years where I was fearful the cancer was coming back, and that promise came to me again, and the peace would come back. And so here I am, 70 years later, not 70 years later, 70 years old, 17 years later, still alive and well.